Hi everyone, my name is Keisha Angeli M. Yabut, and I am here to discuss with the pieces, praise, clause, and sentences, and I am also going to tell you the difference between the three. So now, let's start. So now, let's go to the P part, the praise. So what is praise, by the way? Praise is a group of words that doesn't consist a subject or a verb. So what is an example of a praise? So an example of a praise is under the hill. So when you look at the given statement, there is no subject nor a verb. So it's just a group of words and you don't even know what is under the hill or where is under the hill. So moving on to the next example, on the table. So there's no subject and verb in there. It just said on the table. What is placed on the table? You don't know because it's not a complete word of sentence. A little reminder before we go to the clause part. Phrase is just a group of words that doesn't consist of a subject or a verb and cannot stand alone as a sentence. So now, moving on to the clause. Clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. Clause has two different types, independent clause and dependent clause. Example of independent clause is Joshua took the car to South Korea. Joshua is the subject and the verb is the took. So it actually makes sense. So moving on to another example, Fernando ate the cake. So what is the subject? The subject is Fernando and the verb is ate. So who ate the cake? Fernando. So what is a dependent clause? A dependent clause is a clause that cannot stand alone in a sentence and doesn't express a whole thought. So now what is an example of a dependent clause? An example of a dependent clause is because he went out. So the subject in there is he and the verb is went. So it's still considered as a dependent clause because it literally makes no sense. Where did he went out? So now, another example of a dependent clause is the daisies bloom. The subject in there is daisies and the verb is bloom. So it's still considered as a clause because it literally makes no sense. Where did the daisies bloom? So before we go to the last part, always remember that a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. And the clause is divided into two parts, which is independent and dependent. Independent clause is a clause that can stand alone in a sentence. Dependent clause is a clause that cannot stand alone in a sentence and doesn't express a whole thought. Now let's go to the sentence. Here we know at the last part, S, which stands for sentence. So what is a sentence, by the way? Sentence is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate and expresses a whole thought. So what is a subject and a predicate, by the way? Subject is what the sentence is all about, while the predicate tells something about the subject. So what is an example of a sentence? An example of a sentence is, my big brother Wanwoo went out to the mall to buy clothes. So what is the subject in there? My big brother Wanwoo. And the rest of the sentence is the predicate. What is about my big brother Wanwoo? Is that he went out to the mall to buy clothes. Just always remember that the sentence is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate that expresses a whole thought. So now, did you learn the pieces? I hope you have a fun time learning with me. Bye-bye!